special shows, and lots of all-new music. From Dakar to Benin, from Nigeria to Ghana, Conakry, Bissau, Niger, Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Mali, Mauritania, Ouagadougou, Cape Verde to the Gambia. This is your radio. This is your voice.
Your voice.
This is West Africa Democracy Radio. And we are on air.
We're on air.
West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. It's NEWSLINK. Promoting the culture of West Africa to the world. To the world. West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar in Dakar on 94.9 FM and online at www.wadr.org. NEWSLINK is up next. WADR.
WADR, West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR. WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. Liberia's opposition group continues street celebrations as the second batch of rerun election results puts Boakai ahead of Wia. The Malian government finalizes a $117 million lithium mining deal. Students in Nigeria's north-central state of Nasarawa protest against attempts to pass an LGBTQ bill.
I am a girl. God created me to be a girl, not to be a boy. He already knew that I was going to be a girl right from creation. So there's nobody that can come and tell me that I am trapped in the wrong body.
And gender activists advocate for positive masculinity as a means to ending gender-based violence.
We are born and raised in this condition. So sometimes it can occur that if your wife is tired, she works a lot, you are men, you can be on your bed and looking at your wife cooking and taking care of the children. This is not something normal.
Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NEWSLINK.
Thank you for joining us and many thanks to our listeners in Liberia, Ghana and the Gambia. Let's begin in Liberia, where street celebrations by supporters of the two major presidential candidates in the November 14 rerun continue, despite calls for them to refrain from doing so. However, by late Thursday, loyalists of the opposition candidate Joseph Boakai welcomed his victory even before the final pronouncement of results. The second batch of results from Liberia's presidential runoff elections, as announced by the National Elections Commission, swung for Boakai ahead of incumbent President George Weah. Here is the chairperson of the commission, Davidetta Brown-Lasana, announcing the progressive tallied results from 86.71% of the 5,890 polling centers across the country on Thursday.
5,107 polling places of a total of 5,890 polling places, constituting 86.71%. Boakai Joseph N. UP, votes obtained 712,741, constituting 50.58%. Weah George Mane CDC, votes obtained 696,000 520, constituting 49.42%. Total valid votes, 1,409,261, constituting 100%. Total invalid votes, 22,127. Total votes, 1,431,388.
The chairperson of Liberia Electoral Commission, Davidetta Brown-Lasana, speaking there. Niger's National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, led by General Abdurrahman Chani, has unveiled 2 state institutions. The inauguration of the State Court and the Anti-Corruption Commission was held on Thursday and broadcast on state media in the presence of top military brass, other government officials and diplomats. As Abdullahi Hassan reports, the heads of the 2 institutions were immediately sworn into office for active service.
The State Court, which according to a decree replaces the Court of Secession and the Council of State, dissolved after the coup, will be headed by Magistrate Abdul Galadima. The Anti-Corruption Commission, whose main responsibility is to recover all public assets illegally acquired and or misappropriated, is made up of magistrates, army and police officers, as well as representatives of civil society. Thursday's event marked the first public function by Chani, who since the overthrow of his principal, Mohamed Bazoum, 3 months ago has remained private. Before the official launch of the anti-graft agency, several senior officials of the previous regime were dismissed and others were investigated and detained for alleged corrupt practices. In September, nearly 1,000 diplomatic passports of Nigerians were revoked by the military government. The junta leader had declared to return the country to constitutional rule after establishing structures and had proposed a 3-year transition period, a time frame rejected by ECOWAS. He later promised the organization of a national dialogue to determine the duration. Since the July 26 coup, Niger has suffered heavy economic and financial sanctions imposed by the Economic Community of West African State, ECOWAS.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there. The 12th meeting of the Mali, Burkina Faso and the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, Tripartite Commission is due to end today in Mali. At the heart of the discussions is the need to find lasting solutions to the voluntary repatriation of Malian refugees living in Burkina Faso. The meeting aims to assess the results of the implementation of the tripartite agreements. Sang Donald Mendy reports.
The 3 parties are also considering protection and integration strategies for those who have expressed a desire to return to Mali. According to Mali's Minister of Social Development, Colonel Hassan Bajalo Toure, by the end of September 2023, more than 85,000 returnees had been registered in 115 communes, and more than 207,000 Malian refugees in the 3 countries of asylum, namely Burkina Faso, Mauritania and Niger. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Mali, Mohamed Askia Toure, said it is time to find appropriate mechanism for voluntary repatriation, including adequate shelter. At present, conditions in some return areas do not yet allow for the organized repatriation of the hundreds of thousands of Malian refugees in exile in the sub-region. For the Burkinabe Minister of Expatriates, Jean-Marie Karamoko Traoré, the framework for meetings of the tripartite Burkina Faso, Mali and UNHCR will have to be reviewed. The discussion was initially devoted to examine issues relating to voluntary and organized repatriation of Malian refugees. Given the challenges in the north and center of Mali, the Tripartite Commission recommends continuing to facilitate the voluntary repatriation of the refugees who so wish. It invites the Malian government to continue sharing information with the countries of asylum of the security and humanitarian situation in the area of return.
Sang Donald Mendy filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
And now, Bamako has finalized a financing agreement for the Bugoni lithium mine located in the administrative region of Sikasso. The partner company in the deal, Kodal Minerals, in a statement confirmed the signing of the $117.75 million of 71 billion CFA francs deal. Hainan Mining, a Chinese firm, is at the other end of this agreement and is responsible for developing the project. Ogiobi Erika has more in this report.
The 71 billion CFA francs mining deal was first announced at the beginning of the year but finalized this week. The lithium mine financing agreement is between Hainan Mining, a Chinese firm, which released $100 million to acquire a 51% stake in Kodal Mining UK Limited, KMUK, the Malian branch of the British company. The remaining $17.75 million was invested in Kodal Minerals' parent company. The funds for the Hainan Group's investment in Kodal have been received in its bank account, while the project team has prepared a development plan and budget to be approved by its board of directors. This plan will enable major items such as the proposed DMS modular unit and crushing circuit to be ordered. Once operational, Mali will join the very restricted circle of lithium producers on the African continent. According to the British company, securing these essential items will accelerate its development schedule of commencing commercial production from the deposits within the next 12 months. If effective, Bugoni will be the second lithium project in Mali to come on stream in 2024, after Gulamina, scheduled for the first half of 2024. The mining license granted to KMUK is valid for an initial period of 12 years, renewable every 10 years until all resources have been mined.
Ogiobi Erika with that report. In Nasarawa State, north-central Nigeria, pupils took to the streets to express their dissatisfaction with attempts by certain civil society organizations to influence lawmakers into passing a pro-LGBTQ bill. Carrying placards that conveyed messages of disapproval, the young protesters urged individuals and societies to unite against the push for such legislation. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja tells us more.
The protest rally organized by concerned students aimed to voice their opposition to the proposed bill, which they believe would contradict Nigeria's existing law against same-sex marriage. Enacted in 2013, the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act imposes strict penalties for same-sex unions, public display of affection among same-sex couples, and the operation or involvement in LGBTQ clubs, societies or organizations. The students, displaying their strong stance against the potential bill, made their message clear through creative placards bearing messages such as "Protect our values" and "No pro-LGBTQ bill."
I am a girl. God created me to be a girl, not to be a boy. He already knew that I was going to be a girl right from creation. So there's nobody that can come and tell me that I am trapped in the wrong body. This is wickedness.
Our national anthem says, "O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right." Are our leaders going right? Are they seeing us? I am an African female. I was created. God knew me before I was born.
Their demonstration reflected the prevailing sentiment among the pupils and sought to raise awareness about the potential repercussions of passing the legislation. The pupils also called for unity and collective action among individuals and societies to oppose the bill. Participants emphasized the need to uphold traditional values and religious beliefs in the state, urging lawmakers to maintain the existing laws that criminalize same-sex unions. While the issue of LGBTQ rights remains divisive in Nigeria, with a majority of the population opposing such unions on religious and cultural grounds, it is important to note that the protest represents the voice of the pupils in Nasarawa State, north-central Nigeria. The outcome of these demonstrations is yet to be determined, but it highlights the ongoing discourse and complexity surrounding the LGBTQ rights movement in the country. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You're listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Liberia's opposition group continues street celebrations as the second batch of rerun election results puts Boakai ahead of Wia. The Malian government finalizes a $170 million lithium mining deal. Students in Nigeria's north-central state of Nasarawa protest against attempts to pass an LGBTQ bill. And gender activists advocate for positive masculinity as a means to ending gender-based violence. Still ahead is the guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
The third edition of the Africa Financial Industry Summit, AFIS, is officially underway in Lomé, the Togolese capital. This year, nearly 1,000 stakeholders from the African finance sector gathered at the event, which was launched by Togolese President Faure Essozima Gnassingbé. The two-day high-level meeting is aimed at reinventing the African financial industry, placed under the theme Building a World-Class African Financial Industry, a $1.5 billion opportunity. The forum, aside from conferences, is hosting workshops and roundtables as well as fostering talks, networking, and new partnerships between participants. Amir Ben Yamed is CEO of Jane Afrique Media Group and co-organizer of the summit.
I think the importance is in two critical areas. First of all, we have the short-term issues where we have an economic situation which is quite tense with inflation and interest rates at the highest level. So we definitely need to get Africa's financial industry together to collectively think on how we're going to answer to that very hard environment in terms of financing and what are going to be the consequences for our companies, businesses, and how we're going to fight this. This is the short-term reason for this forum. The long-term reason for the forum, the reason we created this forum, is that we think the financial industry is going to be critical in the future for Africa's to develop itself, for companies to be able to get to the scale we need for them to compete continentally and at the international level. So creating a formidable Africa of financial services is going to be key in the future.
Amir Ben Yamed is CEO of Jane Afrique Media Group. Gender activists have called on young boys and men to make positive masculinity a state of mind, which they opined would tackle the growing rate of violence against women and girls. The term positive masculinity dominated discussion on day 2 of the UN Women's Training for Journalists and Activists as part of the 16 Days of Activism campaign. WADR's Imoredet reports from Sali, where the training is taking place.
Positive masculinity is seen as a way of promoting respectful relationships between men and women and a way of challenging traditional gender roles. It is also seen as an effective way to reduce violence against women and promote gender equality. Gender activists believe that in conservative societies, key actors like religious leaders, politicians, and educators should be included as they can help spread the message of positive masculinity and provide the necessary support to men and boys. Salif Sahonoko is a participant in the training.
It is not a bad thing. First of all, in our culture, it is compulsory for women to cook for men. We are born and raised in this condition. So sometimes it can occur that if your wife is tired, she work a lot. You are men. You can be on your bed and looking at your wife cooking and taking care of the children. This is not something normal. But what I want is that women should first understand that it is compulsory for them to cook, as it is compulsory for a man to take care of his family.
Gender transformative approaches have increasingly sought to interrogate and understand men and masculinities, as well as to analyze their experiences, attitudes, roles, and responsibilities of men and boys, and how these influence behavior, social norms, policy making, and gender equality. But how do we put the demand for equality and positive masculinity on the same level? Mary Bay is also a participant in the workshop.
Very difficult situation because men here very close to their masculinity. And when sometimes women or people try to explain some stuff, they used to think that we're going to take them off. So it's a very big problem for us women, Senegalese women.
The 16 days of activism begins on the 25th of November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and ends on the 10th of December, Human Rights Day, indicating that violence against women is the most widespread human rights violation in the world.
Imoredet found that report. The West African Power Pool, ECOWAS Specialized Energy Institution, has an information and coordination center. This platform, built in Abomey-Calavi, a town close to Benin's economic capital, cost 25 billion CFA francs and links all the ECOWAS countries except Cape Verde. Sankule Janko has the details.
This Information and Coordination Center is a regional trading platform that coordinates the operation of the regional electricity system. It enables eligible companies in ECOWAS countries to buy and sell electricity under a transparent, open and competitive procedure governed by regional electricity trade regulations. According to Sengui Apollinaire Key, Secretary General of WAB, this ECOWAS regional electricity market provides access to the cheapest sources of electricity at a reduced selling price. The market is linked by the electricity grids of 14 ECOWAS member countries. For the time being, only Cape Verde remains outside this network. The European Union financed the project, which cost nearly 20 billion CFA francs. A further 5 billion was spent on expertise, construction, equipment, capacity building, design and organization of the system. The CIC is equipped with devices to monitor the regional interconnected network in real time, as well as to administer the ECOWAS electricity market.
Sankule Janko reporting there.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest segment takes us back to Liberia, where street celebrations by supporters of the two major presidential candidates in the November 14 rerun continue despite calls for them to refrain from doing so. However, by late Thursday, loyalists of the opposition candidate Joseph Boakai welcomed his victory even before the final pronouncement of results. The latest results from Liberia's presidential runoff elections declared by the National Elections Commission favored Boakai over the incumbent president, George Weah. As concerns mount about the potential consequences of these partisan displays on the country by party supporters, we are joined by Anderson Miamen, an observer of the 2023 elections in Liberia.
So far, we are at around 87% of the result from the runoff election. But what we've seen lately is attempts and plans from the two contending parties to celebrate ahead of the release of the final results. Different stakeholders have been calling for calm. They've been admonishing CDC and the Unity Party to refrain from pre-celebrating because the final result has not been announced. So on what basis, for example, are they celebrating when the body statutorily mandated to announce final results has not come up with the final outcome of the election? So we're urging the two political parties, the CDC and the Unity Party, to refrain from celebrating, getting in the streets as we saw a few days after the election, so that they gave the Election Commission the space to do her work, so that in the coming days it can come to the public with a final result from the election.
Right. So, Mr. Anderson, what kind of a mood has this development set in the country, especially for those who are going about their daily activities?
Liberians generally are anxiously awaiting the final outcome of the election. Some people have closed offices since the day of the election, awaiting the result. Of course, there's calm, but then there's a bit of anxiety amongst the different stakeholders, especially so supporters of the two political parties. But there's relative calm in Liberia following the election. There's a bit of tension, of course, here and there, but I think generally we can say that there's calm. We're hoping that the Elections Commission can work within record time to come to the public with the final result from the election. But our laws, they have 2 weeks within which they can work, but they have committed to the public that they will use shorter time to come up with a final result.
Right. So you were an official observer right from the October 10 general elections to the November 14 runoff. What do you think warranted the opposition candidate's supporters to welcome his victory even before the final pronouncement of the results?
Both parties have been talking about compiling the different tally sheets from the different polling precincts and polling centers. So the process has been transparent for the most part. At the end of the voting process, the ballots are counted, and then the final outcome is posted on the wall, and everybody takes copies of it. And because of that, people have been doing what they term as self-tallying in their war rooms, and it is based upon the numbers that they have that they continue to claim victory. But I think also the point to make is that this election is very tight. Even as the results are coming, the margins, the difference between the top and the second candidate is just narrow. So of the overall results that have been announced, I think the present leading, which is the opposition party, is topping by around 16,000 votes. So the margin is very narrow. So that's probably why they're claiming victory. But of course, they need to play by the rules as the Elections Commission has indicated. Wait for the final result to be announced to determine your fate, if you are the winner or the loser. But pre-victory celebration is not really a good thing, especially so that there will be only one winner out of this process. The two candidates will not win. It will be just one person. So this is a recipe for conflict, and it's a recipe for violence, and we don't want that. We want a peaceful country, as we've always indicated. The election will come and go, but then Liberians will remain. Liberia will remain. So we need to conduct ourselves properly, especially so the two political parties that are part of this process, the runoff election, so that at the end of the day, we can have peace after the election.
Anderson Miamen is an observer of the 2023 elections in Liberia. Here is Sankule Janko with the sports update.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Mali secured a place in the last 16 after a 5-1 win over Canada at the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Indonesia. The victory earned the West African side a place in the knockout phase of the competition. Mali finished as runner-up to group winners Spain in Group B. Meanwhile, Morocco beat Indonesia 3-1 in Surabaya to secure top spot in Group A and leave the host facing elimination. The result leaves Indonesia in third spot with 2 points. Morocco joined Mali in the knockout phase, while Senegal need a point to join the African representatives in the round of 16. Elsewhere, the Super Eagles of Nigeria kicked off their FIFA World Cup campaign with a disappointing 1-1 draw against lowly ranked Lesotho on Thursday in Oyo. Lesotho, who is ranked 153rd in the world, 113 places below Nigeria, took a shock lead courtesy of Modulemolo Wanazi's 56-minute strike. West Brom centre-back Sami Ajayi equalized for the Super Eagles with a thumping header. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at WADR News on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.